Hello, I'm Marion. I'm known as Miss Mustard Seed in the blog world.
And I'm Christy. I am also a blogger at Rosemary in Time.
And we've already showed you in a previous video how to mix milk paint. I was actually teaching Christy how to mix milk paint for the very first time with two of our most popular methods, which is just using a stir stick and a cup or a bowl, and the other option was shaking it in a mason jar. So have you been mixing milk paint since then?
Yeah, I actually prefer to do it in the cup method, just because I feel like I'm starting to get to know milk paint. It's a little bit easier for me to see what I'm doing as I mix. But
I prefer that way too, because I like to see the consistency. Because I found, and you'll learn today, that different colors mix differently. It can also depend on the humidity of the day, or sometimes it can depend on even the kind of water that you're using. So there are a lot of variables that come into play. So it's good to just know what the texture is that you're looking for. As I said in the last video, kind of like baking biscuits or pie crust or something. You start to learn as you do it more what the consistency is supposed to look like. So you know, okay, this is too wet, I need to add some more flour. It's too dry, I need to add some more water. So hopefully you'll learn that as you're using milk paint and as you're using milk paint. So I'm going to show you two different methods, and we're using what are, in my opinion, the two hardest colors to mix. And you're going
so exciting.
I know. And we need to just dive into the deep end now. So we're going to use, the first method is using our milk paint mixers. And if you are into like frothing your own little, cappuccinos and stuff, this looks familiar. It's actually a milk frother. And we found that it works extremely well when it comes to mixing just smaller batches of milk paint, which you wouldn't use much more than this. This is about 1/4 cup of milk paint. You wouldn't use a whole lot more than that for a small dresser or something. Okay. So most of the time you will be mixing small batches unless you're doing several pieces at once or a huge hutch or something like that. So this will do the job most of the time. So I've already put in 1/4 cup of the powder, so you can add in 1/4 cup of water.
Okay.
And as I said last time, you can add the water to the cup first and then the powder to it, or you could do the powder first and then the water.
Do you have a preference on how to do it?
I always add the powder first and then the water, but I know other people who swear by the other method. I think the manufacturer actually prefers the water, then adding water and then adding the powder. Okay. Somebody actually asked me too, like, what if you add it slowly, the way you do like when you're cooking, like a roux or something for soup. And I haven't tried that. I'm sort of just like dumping it all in. Just dump it all in.
Best.
Right. So if you want to try like the sprinkling method, go ahead. I think that makes a lot of sense to make a paste first, and then add more water. That might help. So you can try it out. Let us know. Okay, so we're going to put the mixer into the paint before turning it on. Okay. Because if you turn it on and then stick it in, it's gonna splash. Okay. You just pop the battery open.
She told me how to turn it on.
Okay, there's the on switch. Okay, so as you're mixing, okay, we've got a little cloud here. So what you want to do is keep it low in the cup.
Okay. And
if you feel like it's like it was sort of getting a little out of control, then just push it down and stop it. Okay, so then just raise it a little and mix it a little bit more. So it'll stop with just very gentle pressure. But now I'll tell you, if you mix tricycle with a stir stick, you're going to get, like how we had that big, explosion of powder. What'll happen when you're just mixing with a stir stick is that powder's just going to sit on the top and it'll really resist mixing with the water, sort of like oil and vinegar. It'll just be sitting on the top. And it's going to take a lot of stirs with the stir stick. So if you use the milk paint mixer there, you saw it came together very quickly.
Right.
Yeah, aside from
all over.
Right. But you're not going to get that big, sort of explosion of milk paint if you just keep it right at the bottom. But as you can see, it's come together in a nice, like, creamy texture. Yeah. Now, you don't want to overmix it or it will start to really froth. And it'll become a little bit too airy. Tricycle is a messy color to work with, so I would suggest making sure, again, you work over paper or a drop cloth because it's very highly pigmented and it'll get everywhere. So now that we have it mixed, let's go ahead and, like we did before, let's just brush it on and see what the consistency is like, if you like the consistency of it. Now, on your brush, to me, it's looking a little thick.
Yeah.
You notice it's like, it's not coming off at all. So try brushing it on though and see how that works. So with a 1-to-1 ratio, it worked perfectly with Flow Blue. And now here, like in our first video, and now with Tricycle, it's just a little too thick. Now, you can brush it out as you are doing. And if you do have sort of this clumpy texture, you can sand that out. It'll sand out very easily. But I think if you're going to paint a whole piece, I would just add some more water.
Yeah.
So you can add it either just, why don't we add it through the cup and then, so let's add a little bit more water and then stir it a little bit more until we get to the right.
Like that much or another full?
Yeah, I think that's good. I would err on adding a little bit at a time so that you don't add way too much and then you have to add more powder and you get in sort of, so now try mixing with the mixer again. So put it way down at the bottom and then turn it on.
I know where the on switch is now.
That's right. It's kind of important. Should have told you that. And then mix it around. And you can even, as you're mixing it, if you notice, like how is that sort of looking to you or feeling? Is it still feeling a little thick or is that looking okay?
I think it's still thicker than the way we mixed it before.
Right. So I'm going to reach across you here and I'll just add a little bit of water as you're mixing. So I'm just adding in a little bit of a stream there until I see the paint really loosening up and we can kind of see that happening. I'll add maybe a little bit more. So I want to show you all of this to show that it's not this exact science. Like we talked about before, it's not chemistry. We did the exact same ratio that we did with the last, on the last video with Flow Blue. And this time it turned out differently because it's a different color with a different ratio of pigments. So let's try brushing it on a little bit up here and see how. Now see that it's coming off of the brush much better. It doesn't look as clumpy, and when you brush it out, now it's looking...
It's a lot smoother.
Yeah, it's a lot smoother. So it has some bubbles in it because of the frother. It did, it frothed it.
How will that dry?
Well,
the bubbles.
With the bubbles in it, you will get that sort of texture in the first coat anyway. So you could always add a second coat. Or, well, it'll be more visual texture. It won't feel textured. Or you can see it's real bubbly and foamy on top right now. You can just leave it alone and let it rest. And then the bubbles will all, settle. And then you can use it and you won't have any bubbles. Okay, so we took a little break from the video because we had our lookbooks dropped on our driveway or delivered on our driveway. And so we had to go look at them and all. It's exciting. They look amazing. They look really, really good. Anyway, you'll be seeing and hearing about those. But now I'm going to show Christy how to mix using our little mini whisks. And these whisks are available from our retailers. You can get them at some like cooking stores and stuff too, but we found that they were kind of hard to find. So we decided we would carry them to make it easy for people. This is similar to mixing with a stir stick, but the whisk allows you to really break up the lumps and clumps. So like you can't quite do with a stir stick. And it works really well if you mix it in a bowl that has rounded edges. So the whisk really fits perfectly.
Around.
Exactly. So let me hand that to you. We have 1/4 cup of ironstone in there already. And so add 1/4 cup of water. So we're starting with the 1-to-1 ratio. Just like I taught in the first video, that's just a great place to start. With the tricycle, we had to add more water. And with this one, we'll see what happens. Ironstone is a hard color to mix because it doesn't have as many pigments as some of the other colors because it's white. So it tends to, some of the problems people have with it is that it clumps a little bit more than the other colors. And also it just tends to be thinner, as you can tell from the consistency while you're mixing it. And so you really want to scrape the edges and get every little bit of powder that you can in there. And if you have any lumps or anything, to really press them out with the whisk. So that's looking pretty good. Let's
brush it out.
That's right. Let's brush it out and see how it looks. So it's much thinner.
Really runny, yeah.
Yeah, much thinner than the tricycle. even though the ratio was the same. And it's brushing on a lot thinner. As you can tell, it looks kind of watery, and you also still have some clumpiness. So if you're using ironstone and you're having this problem, that's okay. We can fix it. It's not a disaster. So you really could paint a first coat like this and it would be okay. But it really would be better to address the mix issues. So it's a little watery and we have some clumps. So if it's too watery, we're going to just add some more powder to it. So I'll pour a little bit more in. It's a good idea to add just a little bit at a time, just to make sure that you don't then get it too thick, and then again you have to add more water, and then you have to keep playing with it. You want to try to make it a little easier on yourself.
Spend all your time mixing.
That's right. And it is a little bit of a process. You do have to, it does take some time to do. But milk paint is all natural, and that's what makes it a great product to work with. But it's not going to come ready in the can, pop the can, stick the brush in. You do have to mix it. But I found I really enjoy that process because I can get the mix exactly the way I want it for the piece that I'm doing. Sometimes I want it to be thin and watery to do a stain. Sometimes I want it to be a little bit thicker to get some really good texture. We'll get into some more advanced techniques where you can create some great crackle texture and really cool chipping effects and stuff. So let's try putting the brush in again and see how it works. Now, some of the little clumps I think we might still see here, even though we've added more powder. And I think what is a good idea to do with ironstone especially, it's a good idea really with all of the colors, but I think even more so with the lighter ones, is to let them sit for maybe about 5 to 15 minutes. And that will allow those extra little bits that haven't absorbed the water yet to absorb. But as you can tell, there's it's much better coverage.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, when you're working with whites, any whites, you're still going to be in for multiple coats unless you're painting a really light colored paint. So what I would suggest, if you're working with ironstone especially, maybe linen, is to first paint with a mid-tone color, like Luckett's green or Cheddar gray. And that way it will provide a better transition to the light color. So you have a dark wood piece of furniture, paint it in Cheddar gray, and then let it dry, and then paint it with ironstone. And what will happen is you're not going to see Cheddar gray necessarily underneath it, but what happens is a mid-tone covers a dark color better, and a light color covers a mid-tone better than a dark one.
Makes sense.
So the transition isn't so much. So so this would be fine to work with now. If you have any of these little bits, what you can do is once it's dried, take a little bit of a very fine sandpaper or even a steel wool and just run over that to smooth out the texture. Some people like that texture even.
And would you do that before you did another coat?
Yes, I would. So see how this dries. That texture is going to dry that way.
Okay.
And that could be cool in some situations, but you don't always want a piece to look like that. Right. So and I want to cover one more thing when it comes to cleaning the little mini mixers here. Once you are done mixing, just stick it in a cup of clean water and turn it on. And what that'll do, that agitation will clean all of these little coils so they don't get clumped up with milk paint, and then you can use them the next time.
Do you need any soap in it or anything? Or?
No, just water.
Okay.
Now, if you leave it and it gets crusty, that's okay too. You're just going to have to really work the paint out of the coil. Okay. So you're going to help yourself out.
I'm doing it right away.
That's right, if you clean it out right away. So there are a few different options for mixing milk paint using the mini mixer, or the mixer and the mini whisk. So you can, again, try some different options and see what works best for you.
Sure.
And we're going to be sharing some more videos on using our other products, and so I hope you'll follow along.